52 Sundays in a year, never missed church, 25 years, never missed reading my Bible, praying, praying on my knees, never missed it. That is a lifestyle every single day. How great our religion is, the ultimate truth. Look at how simple it is. Adam and Eve sinned, the original sin came, you were a sinner by birth. You cannot, by your own actions, ever cleanse that sin and go to heaven forever. Here comes Jesus, sacrificed for you, shed his blood for you, and you are saved forever. How simple is that message? What does love mean to me? Love means converting others. Because I love them, I don't want them to go to hell. That's love for me. So after so much of manthan, I quit Christianity. I have reconverted a lot of Christians. Thank you, Dr. Amin, for inviting me to be a part of this class. And congratulations to this class on taking that first step toward this very, very important task at hand of Hindus in this country. Frankly, this is a very, very sensitive space. The whole aspect of guiding Hindu Christian couples through one of the most consequential decisions of their lives is very, very important. And thank you for doing what you are doing, Dr. Amin. And since, I mean, just a disclaimer, since I have not attended your course, and you may have covered a lot of these things that I'm going to probably say in this, but I am coming from a lived experience, from the angle of a lived experience of being a Christian and being practicing Christianity for so long in the manner in which I did. So there might be a lot of repetitions from the course, but I want you to look, the class should look at it through the lens of a lived Christian. And I will try my best to educate, the consultants. Like you said, they're already educated, but in a practical way, when they step out into the field to volunteer or maybe even take up as a career, because we need this very much in our Hindu ecosystem in this country. So I will try to touch upon those practical issues that they might encounter, and I will keep my thing short and open up the floor for questions. So because I'm sure the students are going to ask questions that have not been covered, which I don't know what they have covered, what they have not covered. So I'll give a lot of space for the question and answer session. But yeah, I want to start by saying this to just to set the context. When a Hindu and a Christian decide to marry, they're not just bringing two individuals together. They're actually bringing two very different frameworks of truth, identity, family, and ultimately destiny. So let me explain a little bit about this. So I said they're diametrically opposite frameworks of truth. Truth for them is different than truth for us. To identity. So the whole question of who one person is as a Christian, who one person is as a Hindu, that is diametrically opposite how they understand themselves. And the family, what is the family unit? What does the family unit look like? That's very different. Again, ultimately, destiny. Where are we going from here? What is the ultimate goal of life? Where is the destiny of our life? So these are diametrically opposite frameworks. So when a Hindu and a Christian decide to marry, they're bringing together two very diametrically opposing frameworks of truth, identity, family, and destiny. I can't stress the importance of these things enough. Now, the difference extends to the definition of marriage itself, because we are talking about interfaith marriages. We have to focus on what the definition of marriage for a Christian is and what the definition of marriage for a Hindu is. You might have already gone through Hindu marriage traditionally is like, I look at it as like two rivers meeting, each retaining its flow, yet enriching the other. That's as succinctly as I can put it. Now, the Christian marriage especially within the traditional theology of Christianity, is not exactly that. It's closer to, imagine, one river absorbing the other. It absorbs the other. Because Christianity operates on the premise that there is only one ultimate truth and one valid path. So, one, which is the Christian spouse, should absorb the Hindu spouse. That is how they understand marriage. So, it's not two rivers merging and each retaining its own flow, own identity, own reality, own truth. No. And enriching each other? No way. Christian never thinks that they can be enriched by Hindus, theologically at least. So, Christian marriage traditionally, according to its traditional theology, is how to absorb the other person, how to absorb the non Christian spouse. And as consultants, I would think that your job is not to judge which river is right. Your job is to make sure, if I'm right, correct me if I'm wrong, Dilipji. The job of a consultant is to make sure both individuals that come to them understand the river that they are stepping into. So we're not talking about which river is right, which river has taken the right path, and that's not the consultant's job, right? It is to, at that point, make the individuals understand the river that they are actually stepping into and what to expect. What is the current? What is the depth? What is the current of the flow? What is the depth of the river? So all these things have to be um, placed before the individuals on the table. That is my river. That is the river of marriage in my understanding from both the frameworks. Now I'll spend a little time on my own journey. I'm not sure how many have heard about me or followed my work or my journey. I mean, you can put it in the chat. I'll be happy to read just to know how many people in this class have actually already read or followed my work, watched videos of mine. Now, I should say that I did not enter Christianity casually. I entered it with conviction because I was about 12 or 13 years of age when my family got introduced to Christianity through a neighbor. And from there, from the time, this was mid 80s, the first time that my parents or my family even knew about Christianity. From there, the next 25 years, I grew into a very, very devout, fundamental Christianity, following a denomination called Pentecostal Christianity. Pentecostal Christianity is, if you have already covered, Dr. Amin, it believes in the literal 6-day creation story. It believes that there is a Holy Spirit guiding every person that gets converted to Christianity, and there is a devil waiting to devour us. If we step away a little bit from our faith on any given day, the devil is right there to devour us. So these are some of the fundamental beliefs of Pentecostal Christianity. Now, that is a Christianity I went into. And after 25 years of practicing this kind of Christianity, I decided I should go to a seminary because I wanted to become a pastor. And there are two ways of becoming a pastor in India, although it's different here in the US. The two ways is, one is anybody can feel the calling and say, hey, I'm ordained by Jesus himself, by the Holy Spirit himself. Therefore, I want to choose to be a pastor for a career. Go ahead, start a church and start preaching. The other way is to actually get credentialed for that and go study in a seminary and get a theology degree and then start a church, a licensed church. Now, I didn't want to go the rustic route of just declaring myself to be a pastor. I wanted to go the whole 9 yards of understanding theology from its source. So when I've had the chance to migrate to the US, I, with my family, husband and daughter, I decided even before, while we were planning 2 years before we were, we came actually landed here. I had in my mind that, okay, if I want to study theology, I want to do it from the best. I want to learn it from the best. And of course, America, having so many beautiful seminaries, I thought this is the best place for me to get a seminary degree. Now, why did I want to go to the seminary? Because I entered Christianity after what Christianity calls as the Sunday school age. Sunday school age in Christianity is right from conception of a child to all the way to 12 years of age. Now, I was about 13 or so when I was introduced to Christianity, and I had a lot of questions. To give you one example of the questions that came to my mind, which compelled me to go to seminary, are now, even as a Christian, I had no doubt that India was a very old civilization. And because the Bible, the Old Testament of the Bible, covers a lot of races in Christian, lot of races of the world, like the Philistines, the Canaanites, the Midianites. There were so many races that the Bible describes. But India, the race of Hindus was missing in the Old Testament. So there were two possibilities. In my mind, I thought there were two possibilities for the biblical authors missing the mention of India. Either India, Hindus were such such idol worshippers that God did not think it worthy to even mention their name in the Bible. Two, probably I lack the skill to interpret those God-given, God-given Bible verses, because I didn't go to a seminary and I didn't go to a Sunday school. Probably I thought that is where all this knowledge comes from the Sunday school. So I thought, okay, for me to, but I was looking for the mention of India, although it's just mentioned once in the book of Esther. Um, that was not enough for me. That was just not enough. Like other races, ancient races were mentioned, I wanted to see the mention of my race also, talking a little bit about how the Hebrew race, that is a Jewish race, ancient Jewish race, interacted with the Hindu race. I wanted to see that part, which I didn't find. So I thought maybe I'm unable to interpret it somewhere there in the Bible. I'm unable to interpret it. So let me go to the seminary. So that is what compelled me to go to the seminary, because I wanted to understand the Bible. So in my mind, it was like, okay, if I didn't understand this part, if I'm not able to interpret this part, what else am I missing from Christianity and from the Bible? So to answer all these questions, I thought I have to go to the seminary. The other reason for going to the seminary is at some point I wanted to relocate to India and become a pastor. And why should I become a pastor? Because India was apparently reeling in idol worship, and it was doomed to go to hell collectively as a race. And I had that white man's burden to save India from hell. So I thought I have to go to the seminary, educate myself with all the arguments for Christianity, in defense of Christianity, and I should debate with all the Hindu gurus in India and ultimately win India for Christ. Although I don't like that word, for Jesus. I wanted to win India for Jesus. Now, in the seminary, because this we are talking about the academic setup, in the seminary there are two tracks for Christianity, for Christian studies. One is a theological track, which will prepare you to be chaplains, prepare you to be pastors, deacons, and any number of those spiritual careers. The other track is called the apologetics. Apologetics is the defense of Christianity against criticism that Christianity has been facing from the time of its invention. So I chose apologetics. The reason is apologetics has all the arguments against the criticism that Christianity has been facing from Hindus in India. So I had to equip myself with the defense arguments of Christianity. So I chose apologetics track. Now with apologetics, you could also become a good pastor. But with if I chose theology, I would miss on the apologetic arguments. So I thought apologetics, which encompasses the rest of the courses and degrees offered in a seminary, I went for apologetics. So I have a master of divinity in Christian apologetics. That is my seminary. That is the reason for me to get into the seminary. Now, how did I end up quitting Christianity? In a nutshell, it's an intellectual, like manthan, you would call it if you will. Because of the manthan, I began asking questions. Well, I asked a question and went into the seminary hoping that I'll find an answer. But not only did I not find answer to that question, I ended up asking more questions, which raised more questions in turn instead of giving answers. So I kept asking questions. And when I did that, I have gone into great detail about how apologetics actually ended stealing my faith. So the seminary stole my faith. Actually, if you look at it, the seminary which was supposed to strengthen my faith ended up stealing my faith, and for the good, of course. For the good. Can't thank some karma, probably, good karma. So after I went to seminary, this very question compelled me to take up a course called Old Testament Survey. I was always fascinated with Old Testament. I still am. I still do my study of the God of the Old Testament, the race of Jews, the way the Old Testament was written. So it's very fascinating study for me, fascinating research area for me. So the first course that I took was Old Testament, Survey of the Old Testament, Introduction. And in that, the theologian, a very famous American theologian, is actually writing that Bible has errors and inconsistencies, but because it's an apologetic course, there's Purva Paksha first. The argument is presented first, and then the theologian goes to defend the argument, and he presents all the critical arguments after that. So he says the Bible has inconsistencies and errors, but because of this reason, he was justifying it. But my sight did not go beyond the word but. I stopped there. What? The Bible has inconsistencies, but this is supposed to be the infallible, inerrant word of God. How come it has inconsistencies and errors, no matter what the justification is? So that triggered a whole lot of questions. And I asked question after question about not just the Bible. I asked questions about the God of the Old Testament. I asked questions about the Jesus, the existence of Jesus himself, the divinity, the claims of divinity of Jesus. So these questions ultimately led me out of Christianity. Now it's much more nuanced that than this what I just presented in here. How every course that I took in the seminary and the order in which I took those courses, it's a 4.5 years. It took me 4.5 years for 90 plus credits. Um, how each course and the manner in which I took each course peeled layer by layer of my faith until nothing else was left. And so for that, I think you should read the book, like how each course, because you are academically inclined, all of you. I think the book, the academic thing itself will take you through my seminary journey. And there's a lot of theology in there that will help you argue in a setup, where there are debates, or if the Christian spouse is, gets into a debate, which they usually do. I think this book will really help you set things in perspective, both for the Hindu person who comes to you and for the Christian person also. So now that's how I went into Christianity, quit Christianity, and my reasons for quitting Christianity. Now, how was it inside that whole system? See, as I lived within that Christian framework, I began to understand its internal logic more deeply. So, what is it that what are the central ideas? Where does this exclusivity idea come from? Where does this idea that salvation is possible only through Jesus come from? And how did this whole idea of them and us, the binary, the them and us, the saved and the damned, have hell bound, heaven bound, the Christian morals, and anything that is not Christian is immoral. So how did this binary come into into Christian theology? Now that is when the structure became very clear for me. And if you look at the Christian marriage, okay, it is often framed as love. Dr. Amin just talked about showing the other cheek, but is it really showing the other cheek? Is it as simple as that? If showing the other cheek was the central theme of Christianity, how did Christianity end up killing so many people just for rejecting that so called love? Now, very important question we should ask. Why did the Crusades happen? Why did the witch hunting happen? Why did colonization happen? Why did annihilation of indigenous cultures happen? And it's happening to this day. Even the couple sitting right in front of you, the Christian couple, is just the only idea that the couple, that Christian person has, individual has, is how to ultimately erase this demonic identity of this Hindu that I'm going to get married to, but covered in love, affection, showing the other cheek attitude, charity, attitude of charity. Oh, we've built hospitals and schools for you, where you failed. So that you can never avoid that. Why I'm saying that? Because I have been through that. And this is a reality. I'm always looking at the Hindu as, oh my God, this Hindu is going to hell. I have to save her or him. The intention may be right, not always. So when that couple is sitting in front of you, you have to peel the layer of, is this person also really coming from that lens where showing the other cheek is the norm, is the theology? Now, that's a question you should clearly ask. Now, that structure became clear to me once I stepped out of that Christian shell and looked at my faith from the outside. I call this the looking at your faith, the insider's view of Christianity from the outside. An insider's view from the outside. That is what I call. And I remember vividly myself observing one thing and at times participating in it. Conversations where concern for someone's soul was genuine, it's heartfelt, but it always has this underlying assumption. This is a very important point you have to keep in mind when the Christian individual is saying that, hey, look, I care for the salvation of the other person. Danger! You should always look at that statement as a red flag. That is enough, even if it is coming with the most compassionate of tones that you have ever heard. That is a danger signal and a red flag. So even in love, such framework is not at all entirely neutral. It is very very aspirational and very very directional. I know I'm using very very strong vocabulary here, but that is exactly what it is. It's very aspirational and it's very very directional, single point agenda. So it's not neutral, it's not love, it's definitely not compassion. So over time, I began to experience dissonance. And this is not emotional dissonance. So anything that I say about Christianity, either in private setup conversations or on public platforms, nothing about it is emotional. It's intellectual and it is ethical. That's how I put it. So as consultants, you have to be very, very clear of where you are coming from. No emotions. Even if there are times when I hear cringe-worthy statements from the opposite person about Christianity, but then I hold back and I say, I mean, he or she can be as emotional as they want because that's the lens they are looking through. Oh my God, I have to save that other person. That's the lens they are looking through. So emotions are accepted for them. But I, as someone who's looked at my faith through intellectual lens, because of which I quit it, I hold on to that intellectualism, and I treat the Christian faith through the intellectual and ethical lens and not through emotional lens. Very important. So then you will be faced with questions around exclusivity. But what about our truth? But he died for us. But as human beings, we have to go back to him in heaven. That's what he sacrificed for. The justice of the God of the Old Testament, the nature of truth of Jesus. So these will come back to you again and again. Even though the Christian is not well equipped in this Christian vocabulary, academic vocabulary that I'm using right now, but through the conversations, ultimately, if you boil down summarize the conversation you would have with the other person, the Christian person, you can summarize them into exclusivity, justice, sacrifice, truth, only truth, ultimate destiny, which is salvation. So these can be summarized into this terminology. Now, I'll talk a little bit about how churches approach interfaith marriage. I'm sure Dr. Amin covered a lot of it, but like I said, I don't know what he covered. I'll just go to the structured understanding of how churches actually approach this whole institution of marriage. And this particular part, I want you to listen to it not as critics, but just as consultants. you know Emotionally you might be drawn to anything, but when that couple is sitting or standing in front of you, you turn yourself into consultants. No emotions. You may be a hardcore Hindu, but the couple don't want your theology or your beliefs. The couple wants direction. So you are at that point, you wear your consultant hat. Now, the theological foundation in Christianity, like I said, marriage is not a social institution. It's not just a social institution. It is deeply tied to salvation. They may have a contract, they call it the covenant, but it's deeply tied to salvation. In fact, even before I would say a Christian falls in love with a Hindu, it is with this attitude that, oh my God, I have this burden of saving this person's soul. So for the love of Jesus. See, again, when a Christian says that I have compassion for the other person and don't want to see that person going to hell, the reason I'm doing it is because of my love for Jesus, because he sacrificed for everybody. And this person, who is a fool, who is an idiot, did not even understand, has never been told the sacrifice that Jesus did. So it is me. Now, God has positioned me. In fact, the reason I met this person is because God directed me. It's the will of God. God directed me to save this person and the entire family, the extended families, the children to be, the grandchildren to be. So I have that burden. So it is deeply tied to salvation. This is what I mean by it is not just a social institution, it is something to do with soteriology, we call it, right? Salvation. A marriage is seen as a spiritual union under Jesus. With Jesus is another relationship. I don't know if you know this, but every Christian will be ultimately married to this bridegroom called Jesus. So the church is the bride, Jesus is the bridegroom. On judgment day, after everybody is judged and Satan has been thrown into a bottomless pit, and all the people that do not believe in Christianity have been sentenced to eternal hell, the believing community is taken up to the heaven. And in the mid heaven, I mean, between earth and before going to heaven, heaven is the honeymoon, eternal honeymoon, by the way. In the mid sky, Jesus is going to wed the bride, which is the church. This is the understanding. So bring it down to the material marriage context. This is a spiritual union of a man and woman under Jesus. So this is what I mean by it is not just a social institution. Now, in many Christian traditions, husband is considered the spiritual head of the household. And the ultimate goal is not just companionship, it is shared salvation. Shared salvation. So when one partner is not Christian, this kind of this theological understanding from the Christian side creates a theological tension in the household because of this whole theology of, oh, we are getting married because I have to please Jesus because he died for me and his sacrifice has to be made known to this non-Christian spouse. So we are coming under coming under Jesus as one. This is our spiritual union under Jesus. So what is my ultimate goal? Salvation of this person who I'm going to get married to. And this creates a theological tension. One of the prime reasons for this theological tension is because of the unawareness of the Hindu about the intentions of this Christian. Unawareness. Now, this is where the consultancy comes in. This is where advising comes in. It is up to the consultant. It is the burden of the, I don't mind using the word burden. It is the burden of the consultant to acquaint the Hindu of the real intentions of the Christian between the couple. So when this does not happen, when there is no awareness, that is when theological tension happens. Now, the Catholic Church practice is a whole different practice. Dr. Amin covered through his famous, the skip generation conversion. So, in fact, I heard that for the first time from you, Dr. Amin, all those years ago. That was the first time. And then when I went in and actually looked at it on the ground, I understood, oh my God, this is such a dangerous proposition for people that are not aware of it. A lot of people are aware, but they don't care, Hindus being Hindus, right? So, in the Catholic Church, interfaith marriage is definitely permitted, but highly regulated by the church. The Christian partner is typically required to make certain commitments, right, to preserve the faith, to do their best to raise children as Catholics. And because I mean, even when the conversion of the spouse is not explicitly required for marriage, like in the case of Protestant denominations, this is there is this built-in expectation regarding the next generation. So they sign up prenup contracts to this day. They're still doing that. Wow. And Hindus just don't mind doing it. Very sadly, yes. So the focus shifts from the spouse to the children in this kind of expectation. Though, so the children are from the beginning taught, the values of the Bible. Of course, the rest of the exercise, the drill, all the drill. Go to church every Sunday without fail and follow the Christian creed, the Nicene Creed, and all that. Now, in Protestant context, the structure is less centralized. The church is not demanding anything, but the underlying idea remains just that. And in the Protestant setup, the strong emphasis is on language like being equally yoked, 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 spiritual unity, the importance of shared belief, because the Christian is always saying that, hey, look, we don't want our children to look at this tension, that emotional coercion slowly happens after the honeymoon period finishes. We don't want our children, you don't want our children to go through this, right? You anyway don't have the habit of going to the temple. Why don't we just take our children to church? Right, they'll have some kind of spiritual unity. So because you're not too strong in your spiritual thing, but I was raised a Christian, I was raised a Pentecost, I was raised a Baptist, and going to church is part of our culture. So let kids have that discipline. I'll pause here and go back to an anecdote from my life. So after so much of manthan, I quit Christianity. So after so much of manthan, I quit Christianity. And in the beginning, as soon as this doubt started triggering in my questions started coming, flooding my mind, in my mind, I'm already like, okay, I can't sit through these sermons which don't make any sense to me now. I couldn't just sit through a sermon. But then I was raising a child. She was about 7, 8 years old. And my husband, who was a born Christian, a third generation Christian, luckily for me, he never believed in the Christian message. He read the Bible when he was 12 years old, just two lines, first two lines. In the beginning, God created sun, moon, and the earth, stars, whatever that language is. And then he went back to his mother and asked, what does in the beginning here mean? Is it the beginning of this story in the Bible, or is it the beginning of the whole universe, or is it beginning of this particular race that they are talking about? And his mother said, shush, you can't ask such questions. It is Satan tempting you to ask questions. He said, okay, if you don't answer me these questions, I'm not going to read the Bible anymore. And he left it. He never went back to the Bible. And anyway, that's a different story. But the point I'm trying to make here is he was a third generation Christian, and going to church was his social commitment to the religion that he was born into. And after being Christians for that long, navigating your way back into Hinduism is not so easy as it is for the first generation Christian like me, because I still have the memory of being a Hindu, and for a first generation Christian, it's not very difficult to navigate your way back. But for a third generation Christian, very difficult. Um, so he said that we can't raise a godless child. She needs to have some spiritual anchoring. So let's continue going to church. And I did go until I could no more. Then decided that, okay, I'd rather raise a godless child than raising her a Christian. And that's when I stopped going to church. But this the why I'm saying this is, that is where the spouse has an edge, the Christian spouse has an edge. Look, it's okay if you don't believe, it's okay, but for our child we have to do this. And it's very easy for the Hindu spouse to just succumb to that kind of emotional coercion when the matter is about the children that they're raising. And because we don't have anything as Hindus, we don't have anything to offer, saying that, hey, I've been going to temple every Sunday and with my parents, and we sit through the beautiful messaging, and this is what the philosophy says, this is what the theology says. We don't have that. We don't have the language or the articulation to even convince ourselves. What will we convince the other person who comes with a very strong message? So that's where we fail. But making you as consultants, making the Hindu aware of this aspect, this is what is going to come up, will really help equip, guard the Hindu when this issue comes up in their household. Now, this the Christian is putting it very gently, and for the non Christian can never deny it. This is in the Protestant context. Very, very gently it is put. Look, we have to be, we are spirit, we need to have spiritual unity. The language matters. Now, the third setup, we've seen the Catholic setup, we've seen the Protestant setup. The third setup is informal practices. So there is a whole denomination called the interdenominational evangelical Christianity. So what evangelical Christianity did is it picked up a little from everything, all the Protestant messages, and made into a what they call the evangelical Christianity. What happens in that setup? I went to an interdenominational church for a very long time. And in India, interdenominational churches have been created especially to draw the Hindu crowds, to attract Hindu youngsters, Hindu youth, Hindu couples, and Hindu converts. That deserves a whole talk by itself, what evangelical Christianity is all about. But what happens in the interfaith context, in the informal setup, in this evangelical setup, is the church starts creating prayer groups. Now, the Christian spouse, or even before the Christian becomes gets married, Christian couple gets married, the Hindu is already started. Hindu has gone started going to the church with the to be with the fiance, and they form small prayer groups for the unsaved partner. Hey, my partner is unsaved. Okay. You all have the burden just like me to save her or him. So let's form this small prayer group. Are you guys free on Saturday evening? Can we form a group? I'll bring her, I'll bring him. So it starts like that. And, and another danger flag, clothed in compassion, clothed in a language that seems very, very belonging and relational, but it raises a red flag. From the very beginning, the Christian spouse has not hid his or her intention, aspiration. So, prayer groups. Next, pastoral counseling. Pastor, my fiance is Hindu. I mean, of course, I haven't been to any. She's not very rooted. He's not very rooted. But can you please talk to her, talk to him? You know, pastoral counseling focused on conversion. Although the C word, never comes up while they're courting or dating. The C word never comes up. Then community reinforcement. What is that? Bringing food, or if it is on college campus, invitation to a Bible study group. Community, Christianity, I call it a relational religion. It's a it's very relational, relatable. So, wow, look at their community, look at the strength of their community. That is a group I want to belong to. That's how we are losing our youngsters also on college campuses. Then the language. I've been telling this. The language from the get go is very aspirational. He died for us, he sacrificed for us. Show me who sacrificed for you in your gods. Well, this statement doesn't come early on when it becomes aggressive and the spouse is resisting too much the conversion. That's when this comes up, but not in the beginning. In the beginning, it's just about how great our religion is, the ultimate truth. Look at how simple it is. Adam and Eve sinned, the original sin came, you were a sinner by birth, you cannot, by your own actions, ever cleanse that sin and go to heaven forever. Here comes Jesus, sacrificed for you, shed his blood for you, and you are saved forever. How simple is that message? Language, very, very important. And this language, in the context of interfaith marriage, is framed as someone who needs spiritual transformation. And it is so strong, it is so loving, so relational that the Hindu spouse who has no clue about the aspirations and the intention of the Christian spouse will just fall for it. And a lot of times I have observed this, that even though the Hindu knows it in his or her bones that what I was born into, my roots, is where the truth lies, but we don't have the language to articulate it. The best example is my parents. If you read the book, I have actually described about the psychological coercion my parents were facing, even though they knew it in their bones that karma makes more sense than the salvation message of Jesus. They did not have the words to articulate it to the pastor when he started reasoning with my parents. They didn't know it, so they lost the debate. And what happened? They got converted, and whole families, my extent, my siblings, and all are Christian. So we've lost so many families just because my parents could not defend what they believed in their heart to be true. They did not have the language. As Hindus, this was what, about 40, 50 years ago? It's still happening. Nothing changed even after a couple of generations have passed. We still do not have the articulation, the words to articulate what we believe to be truth. Now, a little bit about your role as consultants. What is your role? Understanding these layers. Okay. When when the couple comes to you, the first thing to remember is the fact that you are looking at two people whose goals, whose desired outcomes of this marriage, and the expected household framework are diametrically opposite. I covered this already, but when they are sitting in front of you, look at them through different lenses. You can't look at both through the same lens, because the desired outcome for the Hindu from this marriage is completely different from the desired outcome from this marriage for the Christian. And what should the household look like? Completely different. What is a framework I want to present to my children? Completely different. So look at not just two individuals, different individuals coming from two different kinds of upbringing, but look at them through different lenses. And for that, you have to be well equipped with both the lenses. I'm sure you know about the Hindu side of it. Equip yourself with the Christian side of it also. And I'll not go into where what these lenses, different lenses are. I've already gone over it. But just the three different layers are personal. Three different layers are personal layer, which is love, personality, lifestyle. Second is cultural, which is family, festivals, practices. The third is theological. What does truth mean to both of them? What does salvation, moksha mean to them? Although moksha is nowhere near what salvation is, but for lack of better word in this context, I'm using that. And identity. So the three layers are personal, cultural, theological. Maybe I can expand on this in some other setup, not right now. But these are three important layers that you should understand, that most couples should be made aware of at the outset. Very The first, which is personal, most couple know that okay, my definition of love, divine compassion is different from the other person. My personality is different, my lifestyle is different, which is the Christian's lifestyle is to spend in church every Sunday. Nowhere else I'd rather be. The Hindus thing is, oh, cleaning, grocery, laundry. So this is all, it's on their mind. That's their lifestyle for Sunday. Then cultural. What does family mean? Uh, I'll give you examples from my own life for these three layers. What does family mean? What do festivals look like? What do practices mean? What do celebrations mean? Different, very different cultural layer. Third, theological. I covered it. Truth. What does truth mean? What does salvation mean? What does identity mean? So if you look at from my life, personal, 52 Sundays in a year, never missed church, 25 years, never missed reading my Bible every day, never missed it, and praying, praying on my knees, never missed it. That is a lifestyle every single day. And I was taught, like I said, Pentecostal is the most fervent, category of Christianity. Praying on your knees with tears, I believe, moves God faster than praying standing or sitting and without tears. I was told that. So you make that your lifestyle. A Christian makes that his or her lifestyle, personal. What does love mean to me? Love means converting others. Because I love them, I don't want them to go to hell. That's love for me. That's personal layer. Now, next layer is cultural. What does family look like? For me, family meant family prayers. Even when you are meeting your siblings, you are greeting with not namaste, not good morning, you say praise the Lord. That's how you greet each other. Cultural, right? Very cultural. What does coming together as family mean? Holding hands and praying. I don't think every Hindu family does bhojan mantra before starting food, but every Christian family, even if that Christian doesn't go to church every Sunday, they still hold hands around a table and pray before every meal. To me, that's what family is. And I did that. My daughter, even in her infancy, had to sit through the family prayer at night. Every night we used to have a family prayer. led by yours faithfully. And she would have to attend that also, even at that age. What do festivals mean for us? It begins with a prayer, ends with a prayer. Begins with a Bible reading Bible reading slot in that hour. Whether it is Christmas, we are cutting a cake, or Christians are cutting maybe a goat or a chicken or whatever they eat. Even before that, they pray. Every step, it's just prayer. That's what festival to us means. Food and attire, new clothes, decorations all come later, but it's first prayer. Practices. What do our celebrations look like? What do our birthday? There's a prayer. We call the pastor. There is a sermon. It's never just cake cutting. There is a whole 1 hour pastoral, message. Even if it is anniversary, birthday, nothing goes without prayer. Very cultural. Second layer. Third layer is, of course, theological, which I went through already. This, most of the couples are aware of it. This a Hindu also knows on the surface. The personal aspect, the Hindu already knows before getting into it. The second layer, only some of them are aware of it. I mean, they don't know that during every festival. How many of you actually know before every festival they pray? Even before, while celebrating Christmas, they might have even alcohol and wine and all that, but they still started with a prayer. We don't know that, right? How many of us, you know that, right? So, how many of us know that even their celebrations start with a prayer, end with a prayer, and there is a whole 1 hour sermon from the church pastor? And the least informed is about the third layer. Very few examine it also. Very few even know about it, especially Hindus. So the third layer is where the deepest conflict arises. So three layers of interfaith marriage to understand is these three. Very important for you as consultants. So one of the other aspects in your consulting hour should be to ask the right questions. You don't give advice immediately. Understand where each person comes from. If you already covered this, I'll gloss over this, Dilip ji. Yeah, please
Nothing
unmute.
specific. You may cover little bit here,
Okay,
please.
okay. Okay, so I'll just give you examples. You might in your journey you might come up with many more questions, or I'm happy to help you whenever you need it, if you need it. So to the Christian partner, you can always ask very uncomfortable questions, huh? But you should be with all your confidence, muster up that confidence, and you have to put this question right across the table at the outset. Do you believe your spouse needs salvation through Jesus? Important question. Do you feel responsible for it? Do you feel burdened by the fact that you have to fulfill the great commission of Jesus Christ? There is something called the great commission of Jesus Christ, where Jesus said that go out into the world. Apparently, it is attributed to Jesus. We don't know whether he said it or not. But in the Bible, there is this verse where Jesus is supposed to have told his disciples just before ascending to heaven. So he resurrected. He came back to life on the third day, and then he tells his disciples, "Go out into the world and convert everyone out there." This is called the Great Commission of Jesus Christ. So the disciples, which is all the Christians, have to fulfill this great commission of Jesus Christ. Now, the question for you to ask this Christian partner is, do you feel responsible for fulfilling the great commission of Jesus Christ? The third question is, are you comfortable if your children are raised Hindu? How comfortable are you if your children are raised Hindu? Now, these are just examples. I'm just throwing them out there. The other, to the Hindu partner, you're asking, what does Hindu mean to you? What does being Hindu mean to you? What has your upbringing Hindu upbringing been like? Let them list out. Let them list out, let them tell out. The second question is, are you okay with your children being raised exclusively Christian? Do you understand the expectations of the church / your Christian partner? These are very uncomfortable questions. I can send more questions if you want, but they're very necessary. The if you in your mind, heart, and mind feel, oh my God, this is so cringe. How can I even ask it? Just remember that's the most important question you should ask. So prepare it in front of a mirror, or in front of your own partners and children, and then go out and you have to ask these questions. Become comfortable in your skin to ask these questions. These are very important. There are some non negotiables, and these are not discussed before marriage, and they will surface after marriage. And when they surface later, they incur a great emotional cost. But you must ensure clarity on these aspects, which is the children's upbringing, of course, religious upbringing, um, ritual participation. Hey, I will come to church. I don't mind because we are all inclusive. But I have seen that you are very exclusive from what I know about Christianity. But you, as my spouse, must respect the rituals of my family. So, Satyanarayan Katha, I want you to be there. Participation or not, secondary, we'll work on it slowly. But attendance, yes, for sure. You have to. Festival practices. I remember, to this day, my siblings do that. Our cousins who were still Hindu, my oldest cousin, who was the mother hen of all the younger cousins, and we had about 18, 19 cousins. She would throw parties for, festivals for Ganesh Chaturthi, for Sankranti, for Ugadi, and all those things. And my Christian family also, we used to go, and we would eat the whole rest of the food, but we would never eat the coconut chutney. Never, because we never trusted our Hindu family enough to not have offered it to the deity. Never the coconut chutney. How much time do I have? You have to tell me,
I
Dilip ji.
guess people may have some question answers too.
Okay,
So
okay. So I'll
maybe,
quickly run through.
yeah,
Yes.
right.
So yeah, I promise that I'll open the floor for a longer time for Q&A, but sorry, I just got carried away. So festival practices, funeral rites, and extended family's expectations. What do my parents expect? What are your parents going to expect? Okay. What do my cousins expect when they come to our home? What can we expect when we go to their home? Well, couples might say that we'll figure this out later, but that's not an option, non-negotiable. That is just avoidance on the person who has different intentions from this, different aspirations from this marriage. They might say we'll raise children in both religions. You have to know how big a lie that is. It sounds all inclusive in theory, but in actuality, we know what happens. Their exclusivist framework just doesn't allow them to do that. They will say conversion is not required. That may be true formally for some traditions, but informally, expectations can still exist. We are saying JD Vance. So what is your ethical responsibility? So I'll quickly go over this. Okay. Your role is not to break relationships, it's to prevent uninformed decisions. You understand the difference, right? It's not to create fear, it's to give clarity, especially to the Hindu partner. And tell them that you're not attacking any tradition because you're not dealing with it emotionally, which is why I said it's nothing emotional. You're dealing it with intellectual, ethical, and just to be fair for both the partners. So, step one, awareness. Step two, alignment. Step three, decision. Alignment, awareness, make both the partners aware. Alignment, identify where they align and where they do not. And you should give them enough time to work through those misalignments. And then finally, decision. Help them make a conscious decision. So I will close it there. And I suggest all of you, I have a website called esther.dhanraj.com where I will be in the coming days writing a lot of blog posts on there. And yes, a lot of appendices. my publisher somehow decided to remove the appendices from this book, which are about 60 pages in themselves. I mean, a lot of information there. I had to move all of them to my website. The reason I came up with a website after all these years is just to accommodate the appendices that could not make it into this book. So I suggest go to the website. It's a supplemental reading along with my book. A lot of information there. And in the coming days, I will be posting more blogs on there. It's esterdhanraj.com, as simple as it sounds. And this book, it's a very personal story, but also a lot of theology and academic subject is in there. It will equip you to go rock that world of interfaith marriages.
Thank you. The floor is open for question. Anyone?
So you had a journey of Christianity. Are you converted anyone Hindus to Christianity in your journey?
Great question. Okay. So, uh, thanks to the values that my father gave me, even though he converted at the age of, in his 40s, my parents in the 40s, late 40s, um, he always put down his foot saying that I will never ever go out and convert another person. You will know why he took that decision from the book. If you read that book, he himself had a lot of questions which he expressed on his deathbed. There is a whole chapter about my conversation with my father as a cutter Christian, me, and my father, this doubting person, on his deathbed just 15 days before he passed away. So my father took that decision, and somehow we incorporated that, we all of us children, me especially. And no, to answer your question, the short answer is no, I did not. But I believe that my lifestyle, my Christian lifestyle, should talk for itself. Actions speak louder than words. So I never went out and converted anybody, but always hoped that my lifestyle, my family's lifestyle, would encourage another Hindu to get converted. Wow, Christian life is so good. Christian life is so prosperous. Christian life is so happy. Let me also explore it. So I believed in that. And true enough, there were people that got converted because of that. But yeah, guilty as charged. That is still, I consider it as conversion. And now I'm doing the, what do you call, prayashchit through this work of mine.
Have you been saved any Hindu from conversion?
Have I saved? Oh, yeah. So I run two foundations, grassroots foundations in India. We work with tribals and marginalized communities, the Dalit communities, the tribal, the rural communities. And I mean, just every week, at least a dozen families are getting converted. This is a hush hush. This is a private group. That's why I'm telling. I don't make a big thing about this because of security reasons. I have ground volunteers that work very closely with tribals. Just last week, we converted about 103 tribal. This is from a village, 103 families, almost 200 plus people, to their Grama Devata belief, back to their belief. So it's a very slow transformation, but we are doing it. So, yes, I have reconverted a lot of Christians, especially, our rural and tribals are our biggest targets of the evangelical machinery. So we work in those areas. My foundation's names are, by the way, Gargi Foundation, and the other one is Roots to Roots. One is we work in a stealth mode, making material, research material and all that, which is Gargi Foundation. We help them with funding. We help them with Hindu Fund helps a lot, by the way, helps us a lot. We give them research material. We make content for them, only for their viewing, not for YouTube and all that. And the other is very, very grassroots activism type, which is Routes to Roots. ROUTES to Roots. So these are the two foundations that I run in India.
It sounds like in India there might be helpful to have introduction of religious studies. What's your thought about having more religious studies at school?
So when you say religious, in India there are different religious, right? There are Muslim, there's Islam,
Right.
there's Christianity and Hinduism. So our constitution, if you know the constitution of India, because India is called the Hindu majority country, the majority population does not have many rights. as surprising as it sounds. So our articles of our constitution, the articles of our constitution prohibits Hindus, that is a majority population, from doing any religious education in so-called Hindu schools, which are very less, very expensive, very less. So the minorities, that is the Islam and Christians, they can do their religious studies. The result is Catholic schools enforce, until recently at least, enforce the going to mass every day, some hour in the during their school day. Everybody is encouraged, or some places enforced, to go to the church, go into the church and listen to the brother or father there, or the sister or mother. And Protestant schools, they have something called moral science. The moral science that I read was quite different than what I read during my high school days. In my elementary school, it was completely different. It was real moral science. And when I came to my middle school and high school, Bible was the moral science. So yes, the minorities can teach their religion to students, regardless of what religion the students follow. But Hindu schools cannot teach any religious education unless you go to a gurukul or an ashram.
That was really very, very informative, coming from a Christian, lived the traditions and appreciate it. I'm sure students gained a lot from you.
Thanks for this. I've actually reading the book since yesterday as well. So
Oh, wow.
so thank you so much. So I had one quick question about how like Hindu Sampradayas have such a strong focus on like Brahminical style Hinduism, like no alcohol drinking, no meat eating. But in church, you can do both of those things, and you bring God in it as well. How have you spoken to youth, or these people that are going through Garavapsi? How do you reconcile that? How does it work? I guess that's my question. When one sometimes very focused on abstinence, and with Christianity, it's not necessarily like that.
So again, just like Anne just said that, not if 100 people attend a church, not all 100 turn out to be believing the same thing, right? So just like there's abstinence, you're saying Sampradayik traditions have focus a lot on asceticism and abstinence. There are Christian traditions that follow a lot of abstinence. For example, my father was a smoker all his life. He used to even smoke a pipe. The day he got converted, he just dropped it just like that. My brother, who worked for a liquor industry, the UB group, for a very long time, alcohol just flowed freely, more than rice and wheat at his home. He used to drink and smoke. But the day he got baptized, just dropped it just like that. And today, if you look at why did we lose Punjab? Punjab became Christianized in the last 6-7 years because the drug problem was heavy in Punjab, and the church came saying that, oh, you're worried about your kid, your spouse taking drugs. Follow Jesus. They're going to quit it, and they did it. They did it. To say that Christianity allows for it, I think it's just a human condition, nothing to do with theology, but if you say there is abstinence and asceticism in Hinduism, there is equally in Christianity also.
Yeah, I want to ask, is that your book is available in other languages, or?
Yeah, we're working on that. So I just got a response from Telugu and my Tamil translators that I'm working with. They're saying that it's too complex, and to do justice to it, it's a challenge. So we're just working out those things. But yes, the effort is going on. We want to release it initially in Hindi, Telugu, and Tamil. So we're working on that. So let's see how that goes. So to answer your question, yes, it will be available in other languages and also an audio book. We're looking for an audio book right now.
Yeah, okay. And the last one, is there a book to get a movie out of it? Or?
I mean, if you want to make a movie, I'm fine with it.